We're ready. 3, 2, 1, transition. Hey, welcome to TDD.Academy, David. We're back.
Thanks, Lance. It's nice to be back.
Yeah. We're back with David Kuntz, solopreneur, iOS baseball magnate, maybe. Be the next billionaire. Watch for him. There'll be ticker symbols coming up there.
Yeah, that should be it.
And I'm Lancer
Any
Kind.
minute now.
I'm Lancer Kind. I'm agile coach, sci-fi author, and general troublemaker and writer. So, David, yes, we're here to create trouble.
We're going to create some trouble today, I think. We're going to have possibly a political argument about what is good metrics and what is bad metrics.
Holy smokes.
Which side do you want?
What side do I want?
Yeah.
Well, there are bad metrics, and I don't think metrics by themselves are ever evil, David. I think it's how people use them, and having too many can be too many can also be evil. But yeah.
Oh, that's how you're going to play it, huh? Okay. All right. We'll go with that. So you want to see my metrics? I got to looking here the other day, and we were at this break point between our stories. We've gotten much of the baseball game that we can now display stuff. We still got a lot of types of plays to add and different types of plays and outs and all that stuff to add. But that's pretty much kind of just go through, write some tests first, and then put the play in and see if it works right in the logic that might get pretty hairy. But as I was doing that, I started looking at some of the tests and cleaning up tests, some test names, some places where...
Hold on there. You're cleaning up tests? What does that mean, David? Deleting them? Throwing them away? Eliminating them?
No, I might have eliminated one or two because I eliminated some complete classes that had, blank, empty, beginner, the stuff that the example test that xCode gives you. So I threw away some stuff like that, and I got to thinking, well, I wonder how good of testing we've been doing here with the TDD. And so we've got like 5 model classes: game, inning, lineup, player, and play. And with those 5 classes, I counted, did a line count, a search, and counted something like a little over 90 asserts in our test.
90 asserts. Wow.
Yeah. We have 90 asserts. Guess how many lines we have? Lines of model class.
Lines of model class, I'm going to say there is 300.
Double that and you're still under.
Oh, really? Double that and I'm still under. I like that.
It's something like 740 or something like that lines. Now, this was a line count from just old school Unix of doing a line count in Unix. So it counted comments and all that stuff too. But that gives us something around the 0.12 asserts per line, or inverted. It's about 8 lines per assert.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's interesting. 8 lines of code per assert. 8 lines of production code per assert.
Yeah. So if you think of that as your break-even point there, any method that's under 8 lines, there's a good chance that it's tested on average. Anything that's over 8 lines tells you there's a good chance it's not tested or not tested completely.
Oh, nice.
So there's a kind of you came up with your own metric to say what size methods should you have in your class.
Right.
And so I thought that was pretty interesting.
That is.
But then You know, you can go on and start doing all kinds of stuff with line counting and things like that. And I did some of that. Here it's in my, if you show my screen here,
Yeah.
I've got my, my line counting up from old school. So there's the find command I was running. And if you've ever done Unix and find commands, you're like, oh, a god. I had to go find a find command.
And they make Macs on Unix. So, hey, everybody here on this show who's doing iOS probably can find a Unix.
Yeah.
Or find the find command.
Find the find command, yeah. So, so I got to doing that, and then I thought, boy, they used to have these tools in our CI systems called code coverage tools. Remember that?
Code coverage tools, you bet.
You probably did some of that.
I thought that's a blanket you put over your PC and you call that code coverage. Is that not right?
Yeah, that is.
Okay. That's what I thought. Yeah, we did that a lot.
Yeah. Do you know, when I eat pears, I call that pair programming.
Okay, nice.
Oh, sorry. That was a bad joke. That's like a dead joke or something for programmers. Yeah. Somebody said we should install the code coverage tool that xCode has.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, how about that? Okay, so let's figure that out and figure out how to do it. So you ready to do it?
Are you kidding me? We're going to set up the code coverage tool and we're going to find out if our code's covered by our tests?
Yeah. And then it also annotates the screen too. That's actually the part I like. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So here in xCode, you go to, I'll probably get this wrong a couple of times. You go to product menu, you hold down the option key, and it turns these things into little dots. And then you do test.
Option key to get the secret menu.
A secret menu. And then on the test thing in the options tab, down at the bottom is code coverage.
All right.
Yeah, click the button. How simple.
That's kind of hard.
Yeah.
What's that? Some targets. Do I ask? Is that an experiment?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And normally it comes up with all targets, which means it would record metrics for all the targets that you're building and running, but you only want some targets because you don't want to test, you don't want to analyze your own test.
Yeah.
So you do some targets, and then you have to hit the plus sign right here and add your baseball, which is our target, your executable target. And then you close that, and that sets up the behind the scenes. I think that's setting up the X server for xCode or whatever it's called. But that's doing the collection. Go ahead.
There was a test button, and you clicked something else. I was curious about that test button.
I clicked close, which is
okay.
You know, in it's test here.
So option key, there it is. Yeah. Boom, test ... and
yeah.
So there's okay.
Code coverage. There's a test which would run the test, but I click close, which saves it. It saves that stuff automatically as soon as you do it. So there's no real save button. It's Mac.
So when you close it, well, when you close it, does that mean it's always going to run code coverage when we run our tests? Is that what that means? Oh, okay.
It's going to track code coverage behind the scenes for us when we run our test, but only test at the target, which is the baseball executable. It won't track code coverage of running our own test. It won't get that recursiveness and do that crazy thing. And that's like step one, and it's that simple. Step two is then you want to see some goodness. So you go to the editor menu and click code coverage. And faintly on my screen, you see this gray bar over here, and that's the code coverage. And so when I start running my test, it's going to start recording how many times it hits lines and stuff, and it'll start displaying that data. So here I am building for a test. In a second, it'll start running the test.
Oh, okay. So what did you do to trigger this? You did a...
I went over to the testing
You click that
window
button
and clicked the top button for testing.
Okay, so I set up code coverage and I just run my bloody tests, and then
run my bloody test. Yeah. And then you have code coverage. I don't know if you can see it, but over here is a little one.
What's that mean?
It says this line scene storage got ran once, and this whole body of stuff got ran once. And then if I go over to something like inning test or something inning, and look at inning over here on the side, let me bring that over a little bit. So over here you can see this append for inning got run 31 times. The if statement at the top got 28 times, 3 times for appending to the bottom of the inning a play. So 28 versus 3 there. Add those all up, and that's 31. So you can tell that we've tested both code paths of our if block there.
Nice. And I suppose if you could speculatively say, oh, well, maybe we're missing some scenarios for this other thing because we only ran it once or twice, and at least you could think about it.
Here's an example.
Oh, what happened? Set summary.
Set summary.
We never used it.
We've never used it, and we've never written a test for it.
Oh. We don't use it in our product code either. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. We haven't started using it yet, and we haven't written a test for it. But we wrote the code. I wrote the code. You did.
Does that mean you're going to delete it now? Oh, give me
At
control.
some point, I'm going to find a way to use it. Yeah.
I'll clean the code, you clean tests.
Yeah. I remember one time this guy named Mark that we both worked with.
Yeah.
He says in stand-up one morning, well, yesterday I didn't write any new code, but I deleted 20 lines of code.
Nice. And we were happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he's also the hardcore guy that says, if anybody, and he just is up front, if anybody adds code without a unit test, I'm deleting the code.
Yeah, that was kind of his point was he said afterwards, I asked him, he said afterwards, well, I made sure that the code that was important had a unit test before I lit it. I didn't delete anything that was useful.
He's the Iron Fist style test lead.
Yeah.
Your code will have unit tests or it gets deleted. Nice.
Yeah.
So, okay, you're showing me a lot of stuff here I didn't know about. Like I didn't know about this. I've never before observed and felt this value of looking at code coverage report in the IDE so I could reflect it and get feedback in an interesting way. I am used to the high-level aggregate report out that says, hey, your code base has blah code coverage. So tell me, David, what's the good news? Did we get 300% code coverage? Tell me. We got 300% code coverage. Maybe 400%?
We got 47%.
47%? Oh, my goodness. That's way less than the 110% I'm used to.
Okay, the 110%, somebody's playing with your metrics there. So, yeah, that's pretty good code coverage.
Wow.
Given that we haven't written a lot of stuff for views.
Okay, hang on a second. You did some magic to pull that report up. So go slowly for our audience. Show them how you did that.
All right. I went over to this, I don't know what that thing is called. It's the reports option. And on the menu bar here, and then I found the code coverage and clicked that, and up popped this thing, and then it was summarized, and so all I had to do was pop it down there, and you can move these windows around so that things look a little bit better. And I've got it now sorted by coverage, so the 100s are up here at the top. So we've got 100% coverage. We can go home, baby.
Those first 2 lines. Whoever built those first 2, they really did a good job.
Yeah. Play is well covered.
What happens if you expand play? Let's look at one of those well covered ones. What does it say? Oh, it tells you stuff.
Those are the methods.
Okay.
Well, I assume they would be the methods, but that's a variable initialization expression of play ID. What the heck does that mean?
Maybe that's a initialize. That variable is initialized with an equals inside the body of the class. Maybe
Okay.
instead of being initialized in the initializer. I don't know. I'm it's a strange thing. I don't know why it's important.
Yeah.
Because
but
like
it's saying,
unless it's a public. Well, I don't know. I give up. I don't know.
well, the interesting thing here, and it brings up the downside of code coverage, is that so it ran the initialization of this play ID probably several times, but it's 100% ran, meaning it ran a lot. It ran at least once.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we ever tested it and tested that it's valid. And so code coverage does not equal test coverage, which is what I found many people assume, that code coverage means test coverage, and it doesn't mean that at all.
So test coverage, can you come up with an example of what test coverage means? I mean, you don't have to show it to us. You can just tell us.
Yeah, an example would be you have an if statement in your code, and you have several else's, and then you have several else ifs, and then you have an else. And maybe you have code that covers all your ifs and all your if else's, but you never test that last else, which is else. None of this other stuff equates, and so else do this, and that's usually a kind of an edge case or an outside case or something. Throw an error,
well, in that
and
case,
you might not ever test it.
So that in that case, you would miss some code coverage on that last else. If you like, open up play.swift for a second, and then we'll just point at some code. I don't know if it could probably, well.
It'd probably do that.
I wonder if that happens in the report. Does that report do something interesting if you go into play.swift? Maybe not.
Let's go back over here and see. I haven't used it that much.
Because those look like, maybe they're not clickable. Are those clickable? Any of those things?
Yes, they are.
Okay, runner outcomes are displayed.
I didn't go to the one I thought I clicked on, though.
Okay.
So it took me to the file, but maybe not necessarily the method name.
So in a code coverage versus so code coverage just means the CPU executed the line of code while the coverage checker was watching. So if you scroll up, like say for example line 41. So if line 41 could get 100% coverage if it was executed at all by any of our unit tests. Mm-hmm. But what it doesn't tell us is if you see in it sets up like line 44, it sets up number equal to a sequence number, for example. What code coverage doesn't tell us is if our test case actually asserted that the self.number is doing its job. So it can't. It isn't telling us that. It doesn't know that. It just knows if the code was executed. So the trick here is David, after this show, he could go back to the test and he could delete all of the asserts, every one. Boom, leave. So go ahead and pull up a test really quick. Let's take a look.
You're going to make me delete one. I don't like where this is going.
We're going to a very dark corner now.
Okay.
So here's a test case. So this test is probably giving us some code coverage. I'm trying to think of how we could confirm that.
Called. We can go back and look at that at this method.
Okay, there we are. So if you can you comment out line 55? Let me think. I'm trying to decide if this will get too complicated, if we should do this on the show or on the air. But an idea is we commented that out, get a code coverage report, and see if it changed it or not. Because I don't know if we'll notice it, but that means we're testing.
Okay, let me go back over to code coverage and look at was it called?
Called, I think it was.
Yeah.
So that was
Here's
that at
ump
100%.
called
That was
is
at
100%,
wasn't it? And
the whole file is at 100%.
yeah. So that means people are calling that function a lot, and we might have several tests calling that.
Yeah. It's been called 19 times. That's up here at this stuff where it does the first stuff of calling the function. One time it got this code run, that case, and 18 times the default case ran.
Okay. So if we run this now, that number 19 should be 18 or less. It should be at least not 19.
Yeah, okay. So here we'll rerun all our tests.
Okay.
And has to rebuild and retest. Oh, it's getting an error somewhere, probably.
Wow, it caused an error by doing that. How is that possible? Well, it says 18
I think that's
now.
not an error. That's a failure of the test.
So by the way, we got 18, so it did call it one less. Oh, okay. The test is angry at this because we did something that you needed to confirm. So anyway, it did have 18, so it called it one less. Now, so code coverage only checks if we called it. So how many times we called the code. So if you put the comment, move the comment, or uncomment that line, and now comment out the asserts. And then if you run the tests again, all the tests will be happy. We can go back to ump called. It'll still say 19 again like it did before. So the code coverage will report the same. 19. So it says 19 now. But the problem is we know that we've reduced our testing ability because code coverage doesn't actually check if you assert anything. It just checks that the line got called. So here's the thing, folks. If you have some, let's call them less than honest people developing code.
Crafty developers.
Crafty people. That's a good. And you say, wow, everybody's getting Christmas bonuses if we get 100% code coverage or 98% code coverage in this module. People are going like, whoa, but that's really hard. There's like a bunch of stuff in there we'd have to assert, blah, blah, blah. Well, if there's only a few hours left in that challenge, you know, there is one way to get that code, which is just to call it and don't worry about asserting anything.
Yeah, right here on the screen. That's how you do it.
Yeah, we like to secret out, David. Everybody's getting their Christmas bonuses this year.
Christmas bonuses for everybody.
So don't do that, folks. You want your code coverage to represent what you're honestly testing, but we also want you to know and be aware that code coverage alone doesn't mean you're testing well. It's an indication that you're testing well. It's a correlation, but it's not a strong causative.
Oh, yeah. It is a very strong negative, though.
That's true. Ah, nice point.
So while it can't tell you that you've done good testing, it can tell you you haven't done good testing. And that's what it's telling us here in these files, these view files.
Goodness. The view files, David. The view files. How in the world?
And well,
I'll
back up and say we haven't run the test for the view files.
Really?
No.
Oh.
We haven't run those tests. You want to run those tests? I moved the view file test into their own little testing structure, and it's down here at the bottom.
Oh, yeah, my heart's still palpitating. I don't know.
Okay. And I wrote a few.
Oh, wow.
And now I'll run them. And look at that. They're all green.
Oh, we need a new report. Our report didn't change.
And our report didn't change one iota. That's not what I expected, but maybe it wrote a new report.
Maybe.
Let's go to the newest report.
I see look, 60% now on baseball. And...
All right, look at that. Views have a touch.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Where's
score
the view?
sheet. Dab. Score game view. dab. Look at that. 90%,
Yeah.
David. Holy cow. You're going to get the Christmas bonus for sure this year. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, okay, wow. So you separated them out, and so you have to do 2 steps to get a full report. And wow, David, a lot of people say it's hard to test the view layer. What do you think?
I think that the view layer is a challenge for newbies. I think that it's getting much, much easier to test the view layer, and that there's no excuse for not doing it. I will tell you that it's challenging to learn how, and I learned a lot by doing it again this time. The view layer, there's some tricks to it that if you learn them, it gets so much easier to test. We'll go over and look at one. Let me see. Baseball view test. Here's the game test. I don't think it's in this one. Let's look at the config test, see if it's in here. If I left this, yeah, I left this commented code in here. So these 2 lines right here are pretty powerful. I'm using Alexi's ViewInspector like you expected me to, and I'm inspecting the view under test, VUT, view under test. I love that. But I'm finding, I went in and I'm looking for, find me the thing that has the string 10 in it. And it goes looking through all of the view layers and finds it for me. And then on the next line, I print it out. And then I get this nice printout down in my console here. And I can just copy and paste in like this whole line here. And so I don't have to go in and like guess at all that structure that's required. So using the find command there, I can find this thing, and then I can know the absolute path to it. And from that, it just got so much easier when I started using find command.
So the find command lets you skip all of this navigation to discover something. Okay, that sounds helpful, because otherwise with all this navigation you're sort of fixing your test. You're saying like, hey, it's got to always navigate this way from here on out, and then later when you want to change your UI design, you're gonna have a lot of updating to do. Where find sometimes it might work with whether it's changed or not.
Well, and yes, and you can leave the find in there and assert based on find and stuff, but it's perfectly valid to do that.
Oh, that's true. You have a print, not an assert. I got you. Yeah.
So I'm using the print in here just to get that structure, and then I'm up here. That's like hard coding the structure to the view structure to that particular view element.
So path to root's like tattling to you what the structure is, and then you can.
And it's down in here where I say ViewInspector found some unique path, and then you see this path here, and I didn't have to figure out all those which one of those views needed a 1 or a 0 or any of this stuff. So I get an exact thing to an exact path that I can then go plug in, and basically hard coding it to go to that 10. I can hard code it. So the last time I used it was for this 10 right here, and then so it got way easier when I started using some of the other tools inside of ViewInspector.
Okay, that's cool. So yeah. So ViewInspector is one of your secret tools of the trade, is that right?
That is the secret tool that this guy named Lance gave me.
No. We just were smart. We went on to Twitter. We asked some smart people questions, and they directed us to some GitHub sites. And
and we just downloaded the code.
Yeah, and then when we had troubles, we just pinged the author, and later we had a show with the author. So if you're interested in learning more about unit testing, truly unit testing your views, because I mean these are fast tests. These are not slow, like, oh, I'm going to paint the UI, and oh, I'm going to use xCUI to inspect the view. These are fast tests. So
you can come back here to this reports thing and see how fast those tests run. That one test, 0.07 seconds.
Right, that's fast. That's a lot faster than any manual tester I know.
And it's got a terrible name, test example. How about that?
So if you're interested in learning more about ViewInspector, there's an episode in the archive. You can find it on Twitch or YouTube, where David and I first start trying out ViewInspector, and we have some struggles, and we have to fight the code a little bit, and then we get the author of ViewInspector on another special episode called ViewInspector episode with Alexi, and he's a great guy who came on the show and told us more about ViewInspector.
And yeah, he's constantly working on that code as we speak. It revved, and I had to figure out how in xCode to get it to pull down the new. How in the xCode do you do this? Don't know if I remember.
It's okay.
Is it?
So yeah, the library, I guess I don't know how it's imported. Is it a library or is it I don't know.
It's down here as a dependency, a Swift package dependency. So somewhere it's an editor command. If you know where to look, you can find it. And here it is, Swift packages, update to the latest package version.
Sweet.
And it just does it for you. And you're like, I'm a rock star. Yeah.
So the good news is ViewInspector is being maintained and updated, and so we can keep leveraging that tool. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, are we done with the show, or do we have more to talk about?
Well, one more thing I want to show you.
Oh, there's more, David? More value?
There's one little piece of value here. Besides this awesome stuff here where you can see, we didn't test game add.
Score, right.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff in game, and game has gotten really big. There's this neat little thing called the mini map, which reminds me of a mini-me. And it puts over on the right-hand gutter here this, oh my gosh, look how big the game file is.
Wow. Oh, okay. So it gives you like I don't know what you would call that, a thumbnails, I guess.
Yeah, it's like a thumbnail of your whole file that you can see over there on the side, so you can see where, especially because it's so big.
436 nines.
Yeah.
Wow. Mostly of static initializers for the designer, I think.
Yeah, and it could probably be cleaned up, put somewhere else, and some other things done. So one of the things I did was I came in here and put in these mark methods. Have you seen this?
No, I don't know what this is.
It says init method, and it's making this little thing here in the, see it turning on and off, init methods. And then down here is iterator methods.
Oh, it gives you those bolded text.
Yeah, and it also puts them up here. So iterator method and init methods.
Okay.
It's just a table of contents header sort of thing for your file. Especially when you get a huge file like this, 400 and some lines, it might be nice to group things together and put them in like-minded, however your reference architecture might tell you to do it.
Well, David, I think I have a feeling Taylor Swift would have something to say about this.
What's Taylor's stance? I haven't talked to him lately.
Hang on a second, my phone's buzzing. Let me see what he's... Oh, it's Taylor. Let me see what he wants. Hey, Taylor, we're
He
on the show
heard
right
us.
now. We were just talking about you. What's that? You don't like the mini map? Why is that, Taylor? Well, come on, man. We're trying here. Okay. Taylor says, hey, if you need to use a mini map, your class is too big, bro. I added the bro in. He doesn't ever say that.
Yeah, that was just a big old slap to the back of the head, Taylor. Thanks for that, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I agree with you, especially after I realized it was that big. And one of my next cleanup tasks will be to take this thing down to size.
Wow. Well, hey, man, we've covered a lot of stuff. We covered how to... Is there anything else, or should we start closing?
Well,
Right.
I'm done.
Friday's coming early today. So today we learned, number 1, how to set up your code coverage. I feel like we talked about something before that, but I can't remember what it was.
That's cool. Keep going.
And number 2, we talked more about code coverage and the difference between code coverage and...
Test
You used the word
coverage.
test coverage, and that's a little vague as well, but maybe that's the right thing. You're not testing with code coverage alone. You need those asserts.
Yeah.
And number 3, we talked about, wait a minute, why are all of our views untested? Well, we have unit tests for those folks, and I bet a lot of you do not. So I think, our view test coverage was actually pretty high where we used ViewInspector. So ViewInspector is something else you should try out, and check out our other 2 episodes about ViewInspector if you're curious. And the, what are we calling this thing again? Thumbnails?
Yeah, thumbnails over here. Mini maps.
Mini maps. All right.
Mini maps.
Hey, anything else to say, David, or are we out of here?
That's it. That's
Okay,
it.
folks,
It was fun.
we're letting you
Not
go
no coding
early.
today, though.
So enjoy
I'm gonna
the
do some
weekend.
coding when I hang up. I'm going to do some coding.
All right. Cheers. See you, Taylor. Thanks for the call.